Hello.
Hello, can you hear us? Michael, can you hear
I
us?
can hear you.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right. It is 6:32 and I'm calling this meeting to order. This is the March 31st, 2022 meeting of the Twin Cities German Immersion School Board. We welcome all our visitors tonight. When we gather as a board, we always start with our mission, vision, and values. The mission of the Twin Cities German Immersion School is the innovative education of the whole child through German immersion. Our vision is andere hören, andere sehen, Deltofen denken und handeln. And our values are curiosity, kindness, challenge and support, intercultural engagement, and community. Tonight, the Board of Directors is honored to welcome TCGIS co-founder Mary Fred Bausman-Watkins to the meeting. Thank you for attending tonight, Mary Fred. It's great to see you. We are excited to recognize Mary Fred's extraordinary vision in founding this dynamic school back in 2005 with a dedication tonight and naming of the TCGIS atrium after her. To get started, first, we'd like to share a video that was made in the early days of the school. In the video, the co-founders, Mary Fred Bausman-Watkins and Marcy Zachmeyer-Rue, described their vision for TCGIS. Can you please play that video?
Welcome to Twin Cities German Immersion School, where an international education begins in kindergarten.
We have founded this dynamic school and the kids are learning German and it's happening well.
It's a strong community, even though we don't all live in the same neighborhood.
The mission of Twin Cities German Immersion School is to educate bilingual children for an international future.
We have a really terrific curriculum that's quite well-rounded.
When I started, I didn't know any German.
Being bilingual teaches you intellectual adaptability.
I think it's great. I really like it. There's a nice little society, so to speak.
We have art, we have music, we have gym or sport.
The Twin Cities German Immersion School has the same kind of routine as the German schools.
We had a vision for a small, academically sound school that would really get the foreign language teaching part of immersion really dead on. We were 3 language teachers who had a passion for German.
In an immersion setting, the other culture is our main culture. So they have their American culture at home, they have their German culture here at school, and our particular textbooks are very internationally based. The kids learn how math is done in France and Italy and Turkey, and the international attitude is just woven throughout.
Culture is something that varies around the world, and that's just normal for kids in the immersion school. And in fact, research has shown that children who have had an immersion education tend to be far more open and tolerant of other cultures. They have a real understanding that things don't need to be their way, but could be another way.
So instead of saying we do this and over there they do that, it's more like my friend celebrates this way, my neighbor celebrates this way. And we really try to involve parents in our cultural presentations as well. So the kids really have a personal attachment, a personal relationship with that other culture, no matter which culture it may be. So it's not something abstract in a book. It's personal and it's real. And from early on, they learn that there are all kinds of different and they're all okay. It's not an us and them kind of thing.
Great, thank you. We're going to stop the video there. It's fun to hear the vision as described by Mary Fred and Marcy in this very early days video. And I find it remarkable how close to that vision our school is to this day. So yeah, certainly a very visionary description of how children learn that culture varies around the world and that it's normal to understand that things can be done in different ways. There are all kinds of differences and that's all okay. And that very closely rings true to the diversity, inclusion, and belonging statement that we have written as a board a couple years ago. To show how well Mary Fred's vision is working, we have a tribute video to share with several TCGIS community members, past and present, sharing the personal impacts of Mary Fred that Mary Fred had on them by establishing this amazing school. You share that tribute video.
Hallo Frau Bau. Hi Frau Bau.
Wir wollten uns bedanken für unsere Zeit bei TCGIS.
Wir wollten uns auch bedanken für unser erstes Jahr hier, weil es gibt ja hier so ein Programm für TCGIS-Studenten, für Deutschlerner.
Einige von meinen besten Freunde kenne ich von TCGIS und hoffentlich werde ich in ein paar Jahren in Deutschland studieren.
Ich und Mackenzie studieren immer Deutsch zusammen bei St. Olaf.
As a 2015 graduate of TCGIS, I'm now a German minor in college.
Ich bin gerade auf dem Weg von Amsterdam, wo ich mein Studium fertig gemacht habe.
Ich habe durch meine Zweisprachigkeit sehr viel erleben dürfen.
I've continued to use German throughout my life.
Kennengelernt. Ich studiere jetzt Deutsch bei UW Madison und hoffe, wenn ich damit fertig bin, nach Deutschland zu ziehen und dafür.
Thank you so much for seeing this vision through.
I can honestly say that I am where I am today because of you.
Knowing German fluently is just going to benefit us so much.
Und jetzt, dass wir Zweisprachigkeit haben, werden besseres Zukunft.
Frau Bau prepared us all so well for TSD2, and I can attribute so much of the credit for getting to C1 to her.
I'm very grateful for my German fluency because it has opened many doors for me in life.
Ich bin sehr dankbar dafür, dass du, Marci, so viel Arbeit in euer Herzensprojekt gesteckt habt und damit ganz vielen Schülerinnen eine tolle Ausbildung beschert habt.
I see every day how much of an impact you have made to the parents and especially children of TCGIS.
Thank you, Frau Bau, for being such a great advisor teacher.
Du warst immer so voller Power.
You've had such an impact on our lives.
Ich habe dich kennengelernt als eine sehr engagierte, energiegeladene Powerfrau.
That you founded TCGIS. It had a great impact on my life.
The impact of your influence, your love of language, of students, of learning, just ripples through the entire community.
I'm standing here in the atrium of TCGIS, a space that will soon be named after you.
Vielen Dank, dass Sie das für uns angefangen haben.
We are just so grateful for all the work she's done.
Ich bin für meine Zeit und Erfahrungen an der TCGIS so dankbar.
Thank you so much for your impact.
I'm grateful to Frau Bau for making all possible. You're a legend in my eyes, and I'm so glad that you have graced my life.
You are so inspiring, and I have learned so much from you.
Herzlichen Dank, vielen Dank sagen für alles, was du über die Jahre für Deutsch gemacht hast.
Thank you for everything you've done. We're so grateful for you. Vielen Dank, Frau Bau.
Vielen Dank, Mary Fred. Ohne dich hätte es nie die Schule gegeben.
Vom Herzen, vielen Dank.
Thank you. Herzlichen Dank.
Thank you, Frau Bau.
Thank you, Frau Bau. Peace to you, friend.
So that was a 3-minute compilation of hundreds of minutes of video that was recorded and shared recently with Mary Fred. And I want to thank Zilka Mueller, our director Mueller, and Chris Weinholt, one of the parents of the school, for arranging the video recordings. And we thank Erin Myers for making the compilation video. Yeah. Mary Fred, you are truly a legacy. We are honored to be the current fiduciaries of the school that you founded 17 years ago, and we strive to uphold your vision. We now introduce the board resolution to dedicate the atrium to Mary Fred Bausman-Watkins.
Whereas the Twin Cities German Immersion School, TCGIS, was founded in 2005 by two parents and educators, Mary Fred Bausman-Watkins and Marci Zeichmeyer-Ruch.
Whereas Mary Fred Bausman Watkins and Marcy Sotomayor were visionary in founding a school with the intention of educating bilingual students for an international future.
Whereas the school was established with about 40 total students in the inaugural K-1 classes in 2005 with approximately 7 staff members.
Whereas TCGIS is now the largest German immersion school in North America with approximately 600 students in grades K through 8 and approximately 90 staff members.
Whereas TCGIS is the only German immersion school in the state of Minnesota.
Whereas Mary Fred Bausman Watkins further established an advanced German program at Central High School to enable TCGIS graduates to continue German studies through St. Paul Public Schools.
Whereas TCGIS earliest graduates are now benefiting from German fluency in collegiate studies and exciting work experience both domestically and abroad.
Whereas none of this would be possible without the vision and dedication of Mary Fred Bausman Watkins and Marcy Sotomayor.
Whereas the TCGIS library was posthumously dedicated to and named after Marcy Sotomayor.
Whereas Mary Fred Bausman Watkins always met students and parents with a welcoming smile and German greetings as they entered the school.
Whereas the newly expanded and light-filled atrium provides a welcoming entry and is a vibrant space at the center of the TCGIS campus.
Be it resolved that it is the honor of the Board of Directors in partnership with administration to dedicate and name the TCGIS atrium after Mary Fred Bausman Watkins.
A plaque to commemorate this dedication shall be prominently displayed in the atrium for all who enter TCGIS to know and understand her legacy.
All those in favor of adopting the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
The TCGIS atrium is now named the Mary Fred Bausman Watkins Atrium. Thank you so much for attending tonight, Mary Fred. We're so glad that you could make it. All right, now on to regular items on the agenda. Do I have unanimous approval to approve the consent agenda? Any objections? The consent agenda is approved. We had no letters to respond to this past month, so we'll skip that agenda item. And that brings us to the open forum portion of the evening. Are there any guests in attendance that would like to address the board in open forum? All right, we will now close the open forum portion of the evening. Thank you. Perhaps I should ask Mary Fred, I do want to give you the opportunity to say a few words if you would like to. I just didn't want to put you on the spot originally, but I don't want to miss the opportunity in case you would like to address the board. All right, we have another section of special recognition to give tonight to some TCGIS staff and volunteers. So we start tonight with recognizing our Sunshine Committee. Our Sunshine Committee is a group of staff who works hard to promote positive school culture and create opportunities for fun and gathering. I know they had a soup exchange event, for example, where people made different batches of soup and they got to come in and trade soup. Multiple different kinds to choose from later. I know there's a staff event planned for next week that they've been organizing. Kirsten, what are the details of that? Tomorrow? There's a staff event, I think.
We're going to the Urban Growler.
Urban Growler.
And we're buying food and people are buying their own drinks. It'll be the first chance we've had to be all together outside of campus.
Yeah.
Since the year began.
That's great.
We're looking forward to that. We'll also do our staff recognition awards there.
Nice. And I know the Sunshine Committee has collected money to pull together to provide flowers and gifts to people going through different life events, celebrations, and loss of loved ones, so that the staff can support each other in that way. So it's great to see this off the ground, and we would love to thank Ashley Weston Miller, Julia Henriksen, Alex Beating, Delaney Jacobson, Claudia Müller, Valerie Berlitz, Amy Lundberg, Aviva Font, Maddie Swamstab. Next, we'll recognize the calendar committee.
Yeah, this is my first year on the board, and I was absolutely blown away when I saw the calendar and all the work that must have gone into this, because I think it's so hard with all these parameters going on and all the days to juggle around to put this together. And I thought that this group really deserves recognition from the board for all the work they've been doing. And on the calendar committee were Esther Noy, Ginger Sanford, Natalie Freud, Delaney J. Jacobson, Carrie Ray, Julie Altitude, Lisa Linnell, Rich Ivan, and Kevin Ebert. Excellent work.
Next, the board recognizes champions of diversity and belonging at TCGIS.
I'm happy to recognize these individuals. China Davis has done a consistent job throughout the year of producing beautiful exhibits throughout the school. Just as a couple of examples, she did sort of something that looks like the table of the elements with names of figures in Black history. She did things for Hispanic Awareness Month. She's done lots of different exhibits around the school, including some activities that people can do as more interactive things. So she's really been amazing. Mary Zimmerman, our school librarian, has turned the library into a beautiful space. Also highlighting this month is Women's History Month, Black History Month, and other months that are important in visual ways, highlighting the collections that we have that focus on those things. And then the last name here is our very own Julie Alcatude, director of the board, who has really spearheaded the BIPOC affinity group, which is now a very active group, well attended, and a group that will be working closely with administration as we move forward. Their voices are so critical to the health of our school, and we're really grateful to her for making sure that that group has had consistent activities even with COVID, and that those members have felt supported, invited, that activities have been diverse and well attended, and the people have been well fed and well welcomed. So thank you to Julie for that important work, and to Mary and China.
And finally, tonight, we would like to recognize Jackie Endelmeyer. Jackie saw the opportunity to continue the legacy of the TCGIS Ski Day. The previous organizers, kids graduated, so there was nobody there to organize, and she stepped up and planned a really awesome day of skiing at Trollhagen There was over 200 people from the community that attended, families and kids. There's ski lessons offered in the morning for kiddos. And doing a group event like that makes it really affordable, more affordable than typical skiing would be. And it's just great fun to run into friends in the ski lodge and on the slopes, and just a great community building event. The kids have a lot of fun finding their friends and skiing together. So I wanted to thank Jackie for making that possible yet again for TCGIS. And I know this year there was extra challenges with the snowstorm that came on the first day it was planned. It had to be rescheduled. So a little extra work on her part to figure all that out, but it was rescheduled for March 14th. And we had a great day skiing. So thank you so much, Jackie. All right. Next on the agenda is our authorizer presentation, but we are running ahead of schedule, so I don't see her on quite yet. So Kirsten, would you mind if we-
I am here.
Oh, you are here.
I am here.
Fantastic. I didn't see you on there.
No.
Well, welcome to our board meeting tonight, Terry. We're happy to have you. Terry
Thank you.
is our liaison to the University of St. Thomas, who is our authorizer. And the current authorization contract expires at the end of June. So we are in the process of renewing our contract with our authorizer. And we're happy that it will be extended for another 5 years.
Yeah, congratulations on that. 5 years is the longest it can be extended. So that was great news. Let's see, I did send the PowerPoint. I've been having some trouble sharing my screen, so I don't know if you want to share it from yours.
Yep, I sent it to Julia. I think she'll share it.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, perfect. So we'll look at some of the components of the contract. Most importantly, some of the components that can be tailored to specifically to German immersion. So this is an overview of all of the contract components. Again, the term is 5 years, so you have until 2027 until you have to do this again, which is good because it can be a lot. And then the components just go through the purpose of the school, the location, all of the requirements. You're through with the pre-opening requirements, but all of those are in each contract. So you can keep, yep. And then it also goes through what the authorizer's part is in the contract, and then all of the other legal terms. So what we'll mainly look at are the contract attachments. So the application information is what you filled out, and now I know you're reviewing it, UST is reviewing it, and then soon that will all be signed. And then the school accountability system, which we'll come back to. The articles of incorporation, the bylaws and the admissions policy, you'll provide the most recent, and then those will be put into the contract. The insurance, that's all taken care of. The compliance agreement, I believe Dana sent those over and the board will sign those, and then they'll be added to the contract. Then the oversight by UST, and then our evaluation, which has already been done, and I believe you've reviewed most of that. Any intervention policies, and then what should happen if the school should need to close for any reason. So the three pieces of the school accountability system: academic performance, financial viability, and then the organizational effectiveness, which includes the board, the governance, how well it's run, those kinds of things. So these are the pieces that you have more say in. So the school selected assessment, you've elected to continue using FastBridge for reading and for math. And that will be both growth and proficiency for grades 3 through 8. And then the school specific mission aligned academic goal, you're proposing the student oral proficiency assessment for 2nd grade. And so the 90% and the 70%, that's starting next year, and then going up by 1 percentage point each year thereafter. And then in 3rd grade, using the A1 exam, in 6th grade, using the A2 exam, and then in 8th grade, using the DSD-1 exam. And those are with your school-specific mission goal. Then also the requested changes in the teacher retention goal, using only probationary teachers, and then also a request to lower the percentage to meet the standard. And St. Thomas is open to both of those suggestions. For the using only probationary teachers, we would add, we would make that into 2 pieces, 1 non-probationary, 1 probationary, and then also to change the percentage. And only using teachers who are eligible to return or and taking out teachers who are moving into another assignment. So only using the teachers in those roles that can be retained.
Terry, just one point
Yes.
of clarification. I think the idea was that we would look at non-probationary teachers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Yes.
slide says probationary. Just to clarify.
Yes, it does. Sorry. Yeah, it should be non. It should be non. Yeah. And it says non in the contract. So, yeah. And then the other requested change is in the parent satisfaction goal. And that is to add a metric, are parents satisfied with the German language skills, and also to lower the satisfaction threshold. And again, UST is open to both of those changes. Okay, so now next steps on what needs to happen to get this finished by June. So right now, both the board and administration review the contract. Then there's another meeting between TCGIS and St. Thomas to answer any other questions, to look at any other revisions, any edits, anything that needs to be changed. All board members need to sign the compliance agreement. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the most recent articles of incorporation, bylaws, and enrollment policies, and then obviously the signed compliance agreement. Then late April, early May, all of that will be put together. We'll look at it one more time, and then you will sign it and UST will sign it. And then in June, it will go to the president of St. Thomas and she will sign it. And then you will be good until 2027.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of a very quick overview, but a lot of the hard work is done. So now it's just kind of getting those fine points finished and having everyone sign and yeah. Any questions?
Terry, can you review for us what is possible on a year-to-year basis in terms of adjusting any of the plan?
Yep, so at any time, actually, if there are, like, for example, if there happens to be a worldwide pandemic and things need to change. You know, we're always open to reviewing pieces of the contract that need to be changed, or you can always bring any changes that need to be reviewed to St. Thomas, and then we would look at those with you. Okay. Did that answer that question?
It did, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? And I do just want to point out too that it is the 5-year extension, you know, of the contract, the renewal of the contract is really based on all of the hard work that all of you are doing. It was an easy decision to make to go to the 5 years. So congratulations again on that.
5 years.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much, Terry.
You're very welcome.
No further questions? All right.
Okay.
I look forward to meeting and finalizing the agreements.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Director Christensen, you have the floor for the director's report.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Thinking that.
let's do the same thing. I'm guessing Lisa doesn't mind.
I have a note here that I'd like to share. Mary Fred sent a message via the chat. So Mary Fred says, I am most grateful and delighted to see so many have built on this foundation. Danka. I cough too much. My thanks are sufficient. Thank you, Mary Fred.
We could just end the meeting there, but I will share my screen. I look forward to a day when I don't have to start with an incident report, incident response team update, but they're looking better and better. This week's in-house testing produced 0 positives. We do have 1 positive case that was reported outside of the in-house testing as of now. A couple of notes on recent modifications to COVID protocols. As you all know, masks are optional in the school as of last Monday. Many students and staff are still masking. It's just a real variety. I would say the majority of students are not masking, but in every class there are students who are, and we have staff throughout the school who are also continuing to mask. We are no longer conducting contact tracing. Parents of classes in which a positive case is detected are informed there's a positive case is in the class, protecting the identity of the student. Same way we do if a student has strep throat. Unvaccinated close contacts are no longer required to quarantine, but may now test to stay. So far that is working. And other recent modifications, volunteers and other visitors are now allowed in the building. Performances, drama and music, etc., are approved. Middle school dance has been approved, much to the delight of the students. But that's, I guess, this is public. The students don't know that yet. So any middle school parents, don't share that with your students.
It'll be announced tomorrow.
There's going to be announced tomorrow, okay. And then other public gatherings are approved, such as the upcoming transfer of memory exhibit, which I'll talk about a little later. These, of course, are all contingent on things remaining at community levels of low or medium, as determined by the CDC. Enrollment update. We are currently at 598. We have a 3rd and 5th grader joining after spring break. Those are not yet reflected So we'll be at 600, which is good. And then I feel like I need a drum roll for the next page. This is our update for next year. 605, for the first time in TCGIS history, we'll have 3 cohorts in all 9 grades. Can we just pause for a moment? Wow. Love for Mary Fred to know that news too. I just think it's amazing. It's amazing. So really delighted about that. Just take a look at the numbers in that first column. We will have good, robust enrollments moving forward in the upper grades as well. So things are looking strong. Yeah.
So just curious on the first column, is that based on, except for kindergarten, that's based on parents filling out the survey and saying, I'm planning on coming back? Okay.
So there may be others that are yet to break their house.
Do you know what percent did you get back of those?
I don't.
Okay. But it's a good majority, I assume.
We have good response rate on this. Yeah.
What are you doing for student counts in the 3 cohorts for 7th and 8th grade?
What are we doing for?
Like student counts? Is it just split evenly 3 or?
How many per class?
How many per class?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll do our best to keep it even. Yeah. Mhm.
And so it's 60, so like 20?
20.
in each? Oh, that's
Nice size.
that's impressive.
And we already have done the room Tetris needed to figure out where that 3rd class will be accommodated. So we're prepared for that.
I assume that also involves hiring of additional teachers.
Yes, which I'll talk about momentarily.
Is this the right, is there a time where we would talk about space? Because you mentioned the room Tetris. Is there a time where we can talk about how things are looking space-wise at the school going forward?
Do you have a specific question? I'm not prepared to talk in broad terms, but
I was just curious because you were mentioning, the room Tetris. So what, for looking at next year, assuming that these numbers stay like this, is it really hard? Are we looking at a space deficiency in terms of classrooms?
No, what I'm saying is we have already figured out how we will accommodate the class by moving our current OT classroom. We'll move elsewhere and we will move the 8th grade, and 8th grade class will be in what's now the OT classroom.
Okay, so we still don't really have the no-brainer dedicated classrooms that we would need. You have to do a little bit of juggling to figure out what to do.
We will have dedicated classrooms. We have, how shall I say this? Our music classroom, the music space, is underused. And so we will be able to use that in different, we're finding ways to use that more efficiently.
Okay.
It's empty actually for much of the school week. And so we're, in addition to the OT scheduling, we're working around that. So I can have more detail at next month's meeting.
No, I was just curious. Yeah, maybe that would be good, like kind of a long-term.
Yeah, just a reminder, we have our campus planning subcommittee.
Are they recording?
That's working on that, and I have it on the board retreat agenda for April 23rd to discuss the charter for that subcommittee. I'll have an architect coming to talk to us. So.
But it's a fair question to the immediate future, since we have three cohorts that we didn't have before, but we've already figured out. In fact, before we did the enrollment and everything, we had to figure that out. If we're going to have 2 gigantic 8th grade classes or 3 more sustainable ones. So I think our 8th grade teachers will be happy to not have big ones, right? Any other enrollment questions? Okay. Staffing update. We are currently hiring for kindergarten, 1 kindergarten section. For middle school science, we have more than a full 1.0 need for science. We're hiring there. We're hiring for elementary and middle school sport. We're hiring 3 new EAs, ideally 1 dedicated to each of the kindergarten sections. We're hiring a new ES language immersion specialist. We have had one. That teacher will be redeployed at PLU, at TCGIS elsewhere next year, and a new middle school language immersion specialist. We've never had a middle school language immersion specialist. We are hiring for that next year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that next year. We are also hiring for summer math and German. We have a month-long summer school planned, 3 teachers and 2 EAs. Those funds are coming from ESSER 3, the ESSER 3 grant money that we received from the federal government. Yeah.
What does a language immersion specialist do?
Language
What's the role?
immersion specialist is in a classroom with the teacher and supports in a variety of ways, helping kids with their work, kind of floats throughout the day. Not an EA, so they're not there for that kind of support, but they are kind of an extra set of ears and another mouth, and we just haven't had that in middle school yet.
Okay, thank you.
And it says specialists, but not how many, or is it?
One of each,
like
one for middle
each
school, one
grade?
for elementary school.
Okay, and which, like, are they in a certain class every day?
Our language immersion specialist has been in the elementary school, has been in first grade
Okay.
predominantly this year. I think it's mostly on a needs basis. In middle school, they'll probably be a little more floaty, is what I would assume. Do you know any more about that, Yasmin? Director, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
They're not hired yet, right?
so one for elementary school, one for middle
Correct.
school. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you say more about the summer programming since that's new? Who's that targeted at? How's that going to be offered? When is that going to be offered? Things like that.
Yeah, so that will be for the month of July. I think it's 4 days a week, I think, don't quote me on that. Dean St. Benny will be overseeing that. The grant that we submitted was based on the needs that we saw in our testing. And so it will be targeted at German literacy and math. So I don't think the parameters of that are fully fleshed out, but it will hopefully include at least a little bit of experiential learning, some, obviously academic focus, and maybe some offsite work as well. I don't know about selection. I think that's still in the works.
Thank you.
So as you can see from the relatively small number of hires we have, our teacher retention has been excellent this year, which is no small feat after the year we've had. So I want to thank you all for the support for our staff in various ways throughout the year. I don't know that we can measure exactly how much of a difference that's made for any one individual teacher, but I know that the feeling of support is felt throughout the school. So thank you very much for the days that you've offered throughout this really challenging year. Other staffing questions? Okay. Couple more staffing updates. We have 2 confirmed and possibly 3 current TCGIS staff who have been accepted into the University of St. Thomas Charter School residency program. It's an amazing program in which program participants get a master's while they're teaching, and UST pays TCGIS the bulk of their salary. $30,000 per participant. So it's an amazing financial windfall almost for us. It's a wonderful opportunity for the participants. They have to work pretty hard because they're teaching full-time while going to school to get their degree. But we see it as a grow your own program, hoping that they will be eager to stay with us afterwards. I don't think there's a commitment that they do so, but we hope that they do. So we're really excited to be participating in that. We also, I think I announced this previously, but we applied through MDE for a grant called Come Teach in Minnesota, which is intentionally for recruiting and retaining teachers of color. We advertised widely nationally. We did get an applicant from that advertising, but not an applicant of color. So we have not yet had any direct results for that, but the ads are still out there, and you know, it's an ongoing challenge to find teachers, period, who speak German. Teachers of color who speak German are probably a smaller group, but it's not an impossible challenge, and we continue to try to reach out to groups who might be of interest. So it's a rolling deadline for that.
Do you, what about, what, can you talk about the recruiting that you do in Germany through like ZFA or that VDA portal, you know, is there any concrete recruiting in Germany that would be targeting BIPOC teachers from German-speaking countries?
So we can't exactly target teachers of color through that because they're not identified as such, which is different in the US.
So how do you target, do you specifically say we're looking for BIPOC teachers, or how do you?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
But it's in the US only.
Oh.
Right. It's recruiting teachers from outside of Minnesota to come to Minnesota, to other from other US states to come to Minnesota, and it specifically identifies Native American and teachers of color.
Is there not a way that you could, like if you did an ad like on the portal, like that you could say, you know, we're especially interested in diverse background, you know, like in German, obviously, but so that it would maybe
I'm
resonate?
pretty sure it does already say that, but this is a grant. So I'm pretty sure that all of our ads say that we don't discriminate in any way based on that. I'd have to look at our language on the.
Yeah, I'm sure it says we don't discriminate. I'm just thinking if there's a way to maybe be a little bit more proactive about saying we're you know, eagerly looking forward to speaking to you if you're, I don't know, you know how to say it in German, but just to say that, you know, instead of saying we don't discriminate, to do it the other way around, say we're.
I'm not sure that it doesn't say that, so I just didn't look at that before I came. So
well, my recollection from the last time I looked at it was that it didn't really spell it out like that. But that, I mean, I know there's lots more opportunity now than, you know, 50 years ago.
Diane, are you asking if the ads would be placed in other countries? Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like there's this portal that TCGIS has ads on, or we have a profile with the VDA. And
we have teachers, we've been interviewing teachers who applied to us through that.
But I'm just thinking it might be an interesting time to reevaluate how our profile is positioned on that to see if it's is attractive to, you know, people of color who speak German.
I am in conversation with the faculty member in Frankfurt who does our internship program to let him know that we are interested in interns, in all interns, all qualified interns, and to especially encourage interns of color. He said that that's helpful for him to know because there are countries, for example, he just told me the other day, some of the countries that his interns go to can't teach publicly with a hijab. And so, you know, that's not true in the US, for example, but he, you know, just needs to be able to support his interns of color to know where they will be safe and welcomed. And so I assured him that we would welcome all qualified candidates. So I've had some very direct conversations with him about our desire to welcome interns of all backgrounds. And we do get some teachers from our intern pool eventually too. So that's an avenue that we have to continue to build. Any other questions about staffing? So maybe it goes without saying, but I'm going to say here that, you know, if we're talking about teacher retention, we're talking about real people who are choosing to stay at the school. And I just want to say thank you to our teachers and EAs and the rest of our staff who didn't leave, right? Who chose to stay, who have been devoted to one another, especially every choice to stay home is a choice that has ripple effects on other colleagues, and they've borne that with a special weight this year. Just so grateful to our staff. They're here for the kids, they're here for one another, and that means they're here for this entire community. So just would like to give them a round of applause.
I would like to add maybe also thank you to our administration because it also speaks to you. Thank you.
Okay, so moving here into a discussion of strategic plan and milestones updates for this quarter. Given the sheer number of milestones that we have, I can only give you highlights here, but in collaboration with the admin team, I've selected ones that I think are of special note. In innovative teaching and learning, one of the milestones is compare and align internal curriculum scope and sequence to the Minnesota state standards and to foreign language standards. The curriculum committee is working in grade level groups as well as with English teachers and specialists to align the standards. Math standards have just changed in the last month. The math curriculum will be updated by next year in grades 1st through 8th. So this is a big, big, big ongoing milestone. So the work, this isn't necessarily something that's completed, but that is a really important goal. I don't know if Director Rothgilsrud wants to talk at all, but one of the things we talk about when we talk to candidates who have come to our school to teach is that our teachers have to be really uniquely creative because they have Minnesota state standards that they need to teach in German, but we also have, right, these German language standards that we're trying to meet. So this is the very intricate work that our curriculum people are doing all the time. Do you have anything you want to add to any of that in terms of where you guys are right now? I didn't ask you ahead of time, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, so no worries if not.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that we are facing daily is that we have to create our own materials and curriculum for each and every lesson and align those with all the standards we have to cover. And yeah, our teachers are doing a great job and we're constantly working on it. Yeah.
And the curriculum committee is overseeing that carefully. So it's really the living organ at the school, I think. Another milestone in this area of innovative teaching and learning is continue to expand, professionalize, and implement the DAF program so that DAF support can be even more targeted. So just a couple of items there that are aligned with that milestone. One is to add a middle school language immersion specialist. We haven't hired that person yet, but we're hopeful that we can. And we also have a commitment from the school recently we've decided to pay for GAI, Germanic American Institute, or Goethe Institute courses to support students who come to TCGIS at 3rd grade and above with no German. So this has not been done previously. We have encouraged participation in those courses, but it was at the expense of the student and their family. GAA courses are $175 per semester, essentially, or term. Very, very affordable. Goethe Institute is slightly more. Those classes are online. Given that a student could decide to not come to TCGIS if they didn't feel like they had appropriate support, that investment felt pretty minimal. And the numbers of students we're talking about is under 10 in a given year, probably even under 5. So it's really a very small number of students. So committing to that felt really doable. So, we hope to have increasing number of students. We don't have a lot of capacity in kindergarten and 1st grade, not even usually in 2nd grade. So we do have more capacity for growth in the upper grades. And so we really need to start thinking strategically about how to attract students. So our enrollment coordinator, Nicole Cashel, has made clear to anyone who has applied in those upper grades that TCGIS will pay for summer courses and then into the fall as well, if needed. And I suppose depending on a needs basis, if the student asks for more, we could consider that on a case-by-case basis.
So you said the Goethe Institute ones are online? Okay. Is it an either or type of thing, or can students do both if they'd like to do both? Is it possible to do both to start, I guess?
That's a good question. I don't know that they would need to do both. So it's interesting. I'm guessing if they know about both, they might pick the Goethe Institute because of the flexibility.
Mhm.
The GAI are in person and they're Saturday courses, and given families, you know, summer schedules and sports schedules and other things, Goethe Institute might just be more doable, but it's about $400 or 400 euros, I think, compared to the 175. So it's a little more, but still, given that we could lose 6,700 per student, right, thing, it's a minimal.
Yeah. And you said there's a possibility of doing it summer and fall.
We
if
have committed to
needed,
do
or-
it summer and fall. And we actually have, for this year, we have so many different grants floating in, but I'm pretty sure we can use ESSER 3 funds for this year until it runs out. And then we'll figure out funding after that, but it will always be not very much.
Thanks. Just a thought, maybe something to consider. I have a second grader who's really struggling with German because of the pandemic. So potentially increasing or expanding this option to some students.
Below third grade.
Not necessarily below third grade, but it could be third grade and up, but who have struggled because of the lack of in-person German immersion that they've had during the pandemic.
Yeah, financially, that could potentially get really big. It's an interesting question, but we did specifically ask for funds for an after-school program, which would almost certainly not going to be able to get off the ground this year. But summer was targeted for those kids, but again, that's just a month. But we can look into that, to funding for that. We do know that you're not the first parent we've heard from that has said their child was impacted.
Speaking of what Megan just mentioned, I don't remember what year it was, last year, I put together this tutoring list, which is sort of, it might be a good idea to maybe refresh that. But what I did was I contacted all the different German departments, you know, U of M, St. Olaf, whatever, all of them. And then they sent that on to their students, and their students who were interested got back to me. And so it's a Google Doc or a Google Sheet somewhere, but that might not be a bad thing because it was also done virtually. So for instance, it was meant to be after, I think it was after the first year of the pandemic. So that would have been 2020. For people who, just like you were mentioning, like, you know, my kid's struggling because, you know, the Zoom thing is helping with the German language acquisition. It was a way to at least, you know, get a way to have some additional tutoring.
And if I'm not mistaken, that list of tutors is still published at the bottom of every one.
Bottom of every room, but I don't know is, are
If
those
it's
people
updated.
exactly? If they're still, I did get one email saying, oh, I'm not interested anymore, please take me off the list. So I took them off the list, but it wouldn't be a bad idea just to, you know, pop it out there to the universities and colleges again.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, moving on. A few more under innovative teaching and learning. Another milestone was to establish Abzeichen or awards for middle school subjects. Those are now available in Sozi, Spanish, German, humanities, and math. Pleased to report. Yep.
What is Sozi?
It's social studies.
Ah, I've never heard that one.
I'm not
That's fun.
sure. It's so funny because we,
Sozialwissenschaften.
yeah.
What?
Sozialwissenschaften.
That's what and we never talk about science. We always say Navi. So there's some weird inconsistencies about what we say in English and what we say in German that, affectionately referred to as Uzi. And then achievements beyond the plan, they're just sort of tacked on here, but I'm so delighted about these. The elementary school has officially moved to standards-based grading, which offers parents a really clear look at their kids' achievement, focuses more on learning and student achievement than previous models. I think we're already doing standards-based grading in middle school, right?
No.
No, I knew that, just testing you, good job. Anyway, that's apparently a big move. I wasn't involved in that discussion, but that's a big move. And then I feel like we also need a drum roll for the next one. When we are introducing looping in grades 3 and 4 as of the 2022-2023 school year. This is a very big deal. Teacher initiated, the 3rd and 4th grade teams approached administration. It's not the first time they've asked, but there hasn't been unity on the teams before this year. All teachers were behind it and excited about it. We had one-to-one conversations with each of the teachers, and then team-wide discussions with the teachers to talk about any concerns that might be raised, strategies for making this successful. For anyone who doesn't know what looping is, it's having a teacher continue from 3rd grade into 4th grade, just as we do in 1st and 2nd grade. It is standard practice in German schools to loop all the way from 1st to 4th. We will be doing 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th, not all at once, but
I didn't know that, like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, all.
yep, same teacher. Mhm.
Oh.
So this is a feature of our school that is the models, the German model, but sort of in our own way. The research is very clear on the benefits of looping. You can imagine the social emotional benefits of not having to get used to a new teacher in your 2nd year. And with all of the upheaval that we've had over the last couple of years, we anticipated this will be a really big benefit to our 4th graders and just moving forward from here on out. It also, we don't have data on this in our own context yet, but there is some sense that it can aid teacher retention as teachers themselves have a less bumpy year every 2nd year, right? Any questions about that? So the parents of 2nd graders and parents of 3rd graders just found out this week about this, and we've had only good response from parents so far. So really, really excited about that.
One question.
Yeah.
Because I received one of those emails.
Yeah.
I don't, even being more intimately familiar with the school, I think, than most other 2nd grade parents, it wasn't immediately clear to me what was being expressed in that email. There was excitement and I didn't really know why. I don't know that it hit home for maybe it's just me, I've got a lot going on. But it didn't feel like it was fully explained to the 2nd grade parents that might not know what's going on, because we had that in 1st and 2nd grade. So it was like, we're very excited about this thing we already have. I don't know.
But we're doing it, so it hasn't happened on 2nd grade.
Right.
We've never done it beyond 2nd grade. And so we're excited to be able to continue it in 3rd and 4th grade.
Yep, I get it now that we've talked it through.
Got it, interesting, okay.
But the email just didn't land for me for some reason. I didn't really get why we were excited about it. I was on board, I was excited, I just didn't really know why.
Okay, well, we'll revisit that. I can mention that to Dean White and ask him.
But you got more feedback, so maybe it was just.
Well, I think the feedback that we got was mostly from 3rd and 4th grade parents who already had experienced 1st and 2nd grade. Yeah, so that's interesting.
So the current 2nd graders will get the current 4th grade teachers when they move into 3rd grade. Is that right? Because 3rd grade will continue with 4th grade?
Yeah.
Well, I think 3rd and 4th grade are going to stay where they are. And so the 3rd grade who are now, oh no, you're right. Exactly.
3rd will go to 4th. 4th
So
will go
3rd
to
graders will go up to 4 and 4th will come down to 3rd and get their 2nd graders. And then they'll move up to 4th grade with those kids.
Maybe a flow chart.
Yeah.
I get it now.
I've been living since I got here, so it doesn't land. The flow chart.
Okay.
Yeah.
But only half help.
But Emily, are you excited?
As a parent of a 3rd grader, especially like after COVID and everything, and we had a special case where we had a teacher leave halfway through in 2nd grade. She has really been able to experience that. So I very much appreciate it. And I'm really excited that she'll get to do that. And I think it'll help with some of the, issues that come from the pandemic and then at home and everything. Like the at-home school will be alleviated somewhat from that. So I think it's a great time to start it.
I think our teachers felt that as well.
Yep.
There was real energy from the teachers in believing that this was the time to do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it just shows how amazing our teachers is too, that it was initiated by them. Yeah, that's great.
You said that research is quite clear about the benefits of this concept. Are you also thinking about having this introduced in middle school at some point in the future?
That hasn't come up. So maybe. Is it done in schools in Germany?
Yeah, middle school and high school. Like I had the same teacher in some subjects from 5th through 12th grade.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
And I wasn't gonna ask it, but that made me think about it again. And it goes back to my other question that after I asked it, realized that it was a dumb question about how many students were in each. But it kind of goes into that, I don't know, as an elementary parent, I don't quite understand how the block scheduling works when you get in middle school here. Because they do the students stay with their same cohort even though they switch teachers, or they do?
I'm gonna let one of the teachers answer that.
Yeah, for the most part. So like you can't, like if you have English with this 20 people or 20 kids, you have SOTC with the same.
In 5th and 6th grade, that
Okay.
answer is correct. In 7th and 8th, it's a little bit more complicated, and I might let Director Jospeger here, Abraham, say.
Because of the language classes, we have Spanish introduced then, and not all the students from each cohort take either Spanish or Unterstützungsdeutsch, so they get mixed up.
But mostly still yes.
Mostly.
So 6th grade is also a cohort model.
Yes.
Oh, good. Did not know that.
Okay, that makes more sense than that it's the 20 in each of the cohorts. Of just trying to think of how we call them cohorts if they're all mixing and stuff. That's how it was for me. But so thank you.
Yeah, so there's certainly no, there's no closed door on looping. It's just, this is where it's developed to so far, to expanding it. Interesting, be really interesting. I do think it is something that distinguishes us. It's a really interesting talking point when talking to prospective families. So I'm really pleased. And then finally, there's just a note at the bottom that the milestones in the innovative teaching and learning section on the admin team, one of our deans noted recently that every single one of them is a learning milestone and not a teaching milestone. And so there is a desire on admin to add some milestones that address teaching more directly. And so we'll be doing that at some point soon. Thanks to Dean. Oops, how did that happen? What did I do? What I did. Oh, somebody knows what did I do? Come on. Okay, let me try again. Sorry about that. Okay, there it is. I have to share again, yeah. Okay. No idea what happened. There it is. Okay. All right, is this where I was? Yeah, okay. Next area of the milestones is school culture and engagement. Oh, I was saying thank you to Dean St. Benny for highlighting the need for more milestones on teaching. School culture and engagement. One of the milestones is maintain 3 classes in grades K through 7, and we have superseded that and have now 3 sections in K through 8. Another milestone is to document all international recruiting procedures. This is not a sexy milestone, but it is incredibly important, and many thanks to Katarina Schier for being incredibly organized. She does all of our pre-screening of applicants, many more applicants than we interview. She pre-screens, does initial conversations with them over Zoom, pours through lots and lots of materials, is very thorough with them. Every single candidate to a person that we interview, when we ask, do you have questions? They almost never have questions because Katarina has answered them all ahead of time. She is very organized. So this might seem like a very small thing, but it's really important for us in being able to figure out how we do what we do, making sure that we're up to date on our website, our web presence looks good in all of these places that we are, for example. So many thanks to her for that. Happy to highlight some things under diversity and belonging. I have 3 milestones listed. Collaborative projects with the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council. of Minnesota and the Dakotas, plan events to celebrate diversity in our community and world, and curate diverse books through the TCGIS library. All three of those milestones are being addressed or met in some way by our upcoming exhibit Transfer of Memory and the related events to that in April and May. So I don't have the details here, but you should have seen them in the Rundbrief by now. Beginning on the afternoon of April 15th, which is a non-school day, but we'll probably have some kinder club families in the building that day. The exhibit Transfer of Memory will be installed in the TCGIS atrium. It's a series of 16 by 20 portraits, color portraits of Holocaust survivors from Minnesota with brief stories of their lives underneath. And that will be in the atrium. And then on the 27th of April, which is the eve of Yom HaShoah, or Holocaust Remembrance Day, we will have Steve Huned, who is the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council, and I'm blanking on his name, but the photographer who did the portraits for this exhibit. They will be at TCGIS, so we'll have kind of a formal opening of the exhibit or public opportunity to see the exhibit and hear some remarks from them. We will also have at that evening a screening of an award-winning animated short film called The Tattooed Torah, which is an absolutely beautiful film intended for young audiences, based on a true story about a young boy and his grandfather in Czechoslovakia, who were taken to work in a warehouse where all of the confiscated Torahs in Czechoslovakia were housed. And the grandfather tattooed them or numbered them and cataloged them. And the little boy saw his own Torah from his own synagogue come into that warehouse, and later learned as an adult that those were being recovered in England, and was able to bring that Torah home to his synagogue in Chicago. It's very, very touching. And so we'll be screening that there. It's not available on YouTube. It's still on the festival circuit. So it's a rare opportunity for us to see it. I'm really delighted that we can host it. We have that book in our library. We'll have copies of that book for sale that evening. And we have been very intentional about building our collection of books in both English and German on Jewish life and customs, and age-appropriate books on the Holocaust in preparation for this event, and they'll of course be a permanent part of the collection. Another milestone has been to plan annual diversity training for all staff. We have an upcoming professional development workshop on April 15th with an anti-racist educator from Berlin named Angelo Camufingo. He's a really delightful person. We already had a conversation with him and are looking forward to his workshop and work with our teachers on April 15th. And another milestone, I just sort of paraphrased what's happened because it's really part of the milestone. As you all know, in February, the board approved the calendar for the next year and beyond, next 2 years. Just next year.
Just next year.
Just next year, which included significant improvements toward diversity and belonging, sensitivity towards different religious holidays, for example. So I wanted to note that. Under financial stability, I note here a lot of, we have a kind of a working document with the milestones, and a lot of our financial ones are not yet. It's been a challenging year for a lot of reasons, but one that I'm really happy about, which I already mentioned, one of our milestones is to create and implement policy procedure for supporting teachers and staff with tuition reimbursement for graduate school. So related to that, but not exactly that, is the UST Charter Residency Program, which allows us to support. So this is a program we didn't know about when we made this milestone. So we're still working on, we do still support staff who apply for master's programs at other institutions. We have I think that's not quite, I think we still have some things we want to clarify about the policy, but we do have staff who are participating in other tuition reimbursement programs, but this is new. The OC Charter School program is new. And then achievements beyond the plan, I'll just note our recent joint capstone fundraiser with the German American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Yvette, at the Europe Brewing Company. Wonderful attendance there of all ages. It wasn't just capstone families. We had lots of little friends there too. It was a really nice opportunity. So it's something I hope we can build on in the future. And thanks to Diane for organizing that. And then that's it for me. And I know that Director Linnell, you're going to talk about my development plan later. I have a link to it if needed.
Okay. Dr. Christensen.
Yeah.
A couple of questions, just going back to the beginning of your presentation.
Sure.
Curriculum committee. So that's different than the curriculum advisory committee. Is that right?
Correct. And maybe that's not even the right term. You guys who meet in Michael's office, who are you?
It's the deans, the middle school dean, the elementary school dean, sometimes the dean of student support,
academic support,
and then the curriculum coordinators, Ginger signed for me.
Okay.
We don't have a name.
Yeah, I just made up curriculum committee, but it is different. Yeah, so thanks for clarifying. It is different from the curriculum advisory committee.
Right, and so I just wanted to understand the resources that are allocated to support this committee. How much time is carved out into the day or weeks for this group to meet and to work individually on the work. And then, so I also wanted to understand if this was extra to teacher, like if teachers are involved in it and if they're being compensated for the curriculum work.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that? So you and Ginger both have compensated positions, stipended positions, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what percent of your time is on curriculum?
It's complicated.
It's like 60% of my day.
Okay.
So there's a commitment in that way.
If you wish a full report, the board can invite me and I can speak about what I'm doing.
Take you up on that.
It's a lot, it's many different
components
areas.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be too much for now, but I can certainly speak about that next time.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I'll apologize in advance. Apologize not in advance for putting you on the spot twice in this meeting.
And I guess my follow-up question that we maybe don't have an answer to, but is that enough resources? How many people need to be working on this to get us to meet our milestones? So, think about that. Let's see. And then with 60 eighth graders next year, that's really exciting. I'm wondering what is planned for capstone, because I understand we've never sent 60 kids over before.
Correct.
Could you update what we're doing to plan for that big trip?
Only in broad strokes at this point. As you know, the capstone to Berlin was canceled to our great heartbreak for the third year in a row. From the ashes of that program, the alternative program to Chicago was planned. So I don't know if people know about that who aren't eighth grade parents, but there is a 4-day trip to Chicago for eighth grade students who wish to go. So I only mention that to say that, you know, our capstone committee planned the Berlin trip. We're in the, you know, penultimate stages of that when it had to be canceled, and then had to start from scratch to plan the new trip. So there hasn't been a lot of time to consider what will be happening moving forward. But what we have already discussed is that, you know, we may be at a point next year where we need to contract the work of capstone out, right? That we have a firm do it for us, potentially. We don't know yet. It is a stunning amount of work to happen in-house. This year has been pretty close to overwhelming because of the need to do all the work. And then there's work to cancel the work that you put in place and then to come up with another trip. I can't imagine that will ever happen again, but never say never. Hopefully not, but just the sheer size of the cost, we already have had the discussion about what needs to happen moving forward. Is it sustainable for us to continue doing it in-house? And that's only a portion of the job of the person who's doing the bulk of it. So.
There's also the other component in Capstone, like the students coming here, which used to be like September, October, or whatever.
And that would continue to be part of it, but that of course gets bigger and bigger the bigger the classes too. I imagine that would continue to be managed in-house, but I don't know that for sure.
But that might pretty much happen in the fall, this upcoming fall.
Hopefully,
yeah,
it's in the works for sure. And there was weren't there virtual matchups this year? Not really. They were matched up, whether they were very meaningful or not, I guess is another question.
For my kid, it was not meaningful. I don't know what it's like for other 8th grade parents, but it was a little thing, which is understandable.
We tried.
I know, it's understandable.
Yeah.
This has just been a bizarre 2 years, so.
And just one idea to toss out there, maybe the group that's planning Chicago already is planning this. I'm curious if they're planning to visit the German immersion school in Chicago.
No. I mean, I know the agenda, but that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Are there German components to it somehow? I was just thinking it'd be a cool way to connect again with the German immersion school in Chicago. We have a former teacher from TCGIS. I think he's still there. Tommy and Eastern that we could connect with to potentially meet up, have the kids speak German with some of the kids. Interesting idea.
I can pass it along. It's not to be jaded, but it's hard for me to imagine kids who speak German. They're all American.
Yeah.
It would be cool. It would be cool for them to see the school for sure. But I'm not in the plan in on the planning of that. But I'm happy to pass them on. It would be lovely to establish partnerships.
It's also a pretty short trip. They're only in Chicago for 2 days.
Yeah.
When is the trip?
June 9th.
16.
Yeah, so the 2 days are taken up almost entirely with travel.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any further questions for the director?
It was a great update.
Yeah.
Like, I love all the exciting news. So much is going on. So it's great.
In spite of everything, and we've joked throughout the year that our main milestone was to just be vertical by end of June. But I'm, whenever we have to do these updates, it makes us feel happy too to know that we're doing substantive, just to remind ourselves of the good work that's happening throughout the school. Great staff.
Next, we'll move to liaison updates, and we'll start with our administrative liaison. Guys, to the end of your report, you have your development plan.
Right, we have an action item for administrative liaison for a change. So state statute requires that the board approve an annual development plan for directors, executive directors, that is, that do not have an administrative license. So we are going to be reviewing and voting on Executive Director Christensen's plan, which we talked about at administrative liaison. I will share my screen. So you can see that. Director Christensen, do you want to walk through the different elements and give a little bit of context for the reason behind the the activities that you selected for your plan?
Sure. So the first item on the development plan is executive coaching, which was part of my contract. I didn't ask for it, but would have if it hadn't been already offered in the contract. I'm really grateful for that. I interviewed 3 executive coaches, all with very, very different approaches, and settled on the Bailey Group, which is actually a Twin Cities-based executive coaching firm who does work among other places in the education sector. I meet every 3 weeks, one-on-one with my coach, who's fantastic. Part of the reason I was intrigued by this group is that it includes something called the Hogan assessments, the 3-part assessment, which are really kind of about leadership style. And I met then after they're quite expensive to do, but it's part of the package. I met after completing those assessments with my coach and with a sort of a leadership behavioral specialist person. I don't know exactly she was from their company, but I don't know what her exact title was, to talk about what those mean and what they suggest about goals I can set, strengths that I have, et cetera. It was really, really enlightening. And I, of course, had access to those results. So I'll be meeting through every 3 weeks for the first 2 years of my contract with them. And I'll just mention that, the term "it's lonely" at the top is a good reason to have an executive coach, right? There's not always someone that I can talk to. I have an amazing admin team, but there are certain things I can't really talk to them about in a comfortable way. And so it's really, really nice to have someone there. I appreciated that very much. I also participate in the Minnesota Principals Academy, which is run by the University of Minnesota School of Education. It's a 2-year program. It doesn't result in any kind of licensure. You get a certificate of completion. I think you might be able to get, I'm sure it's worth something towards licensure if you're doing that, which I'm not, but most of the people in the program are already principals or assistant principals, I think, without exception. I'm really a bit of an odd duck in there. There are other charter school leaders, but I think most of them are licensed principals. So there's good research showing that the better the professional development of principals, the better performing the school is. So I approach this participation with humility and excitement, knowing that my background coming into this job is different from other school leaders. It's exciting to sit in a room with 35 other principals and learn from them. We deal with a lot of case studies. We have to produce a project at the end. Mine will focus on diversity and belonging. And it's just really, really interesting. So once a month, I meet with this cohort for 2 days, 2 full days. This month it'll be for 3 full days because we're working on the research projects. Other things I'm working on are participating in a variety of trainings as part of the Minnesota Association of Charter Schools New Leader Cohort. MAX, as it's called, is a really amazing organization that supports its leaders really tremendously. So we've had various opportunities to get together there, and that's with the new leaders. And then all charter leaders from across the state meet virtually every Tuesday. Those meetings are amazing, an amazing way to network. For example, if we're having busing issues, who do you use for busing? There's usually a little bit at the beginning where we talk about something structured, and then it's just kind of a free-for-all networking and question and idea sharing. And it's especially over the course of this last year, when you can feel pretty isolated, it's been really important. And then I have an ongoing commitment to participating in webinars and workshops wherever I can fit them in both educational leadership and in German studies for the benefit of the school. Just today, for example, I participated in a webinar on equity, developing equitable leadership in the schools. There's so many opportunities out there, most of which cost nothing except my time. And so where I can fit them in, I'm trying to do that.
What I really like about this plan is that it takes a lot of it touches all kinds of leadership facets for what we need an executive director, a leader of people, leader of an organization, how you develop people that work with you, under you. Because you're new to Minnesota, being able to add an arm of this through Max to meet other Minnesota charter school leaders not only gives you that network, but also gives you that broader understanding of what the charter environment is like in Minnesota, because I know it's different from other states, and that allows you to do some of the myth busting about charters. People that have heard about charters, the way they're structured in other states, have assumptions about the way it works in Minnesota, and it's much more egalitarian here and a robust part of the public school system and not private school in name only. So I appreciate that. And then your German language enthusiasm and leadership is also represented in this. So I think it's a really robust plan. I appreciate it. So I'll make a motion to approve the plan as presented by Dr. Christensen. And ask for a second.
Second. Thank you, Director Linnell. There's been a motion to approve the development plan as presented by Kirsten Christensen. It was seconded by Director Bell. Discussion on this motion.
Just clarification, it's a yearly thing?
Yes.
That we have to review this. So is this for the past year, the coming year? When?
It goes into our annual report for St. Thomas. So.
Understood. Thank you.
Two of the items, the first two items cross 2 years.
Yep. Okay.
So they'll be on there again next year, and then maybe something else will be there.
So ahead of it, I'm just trying to get you also when it'll be talked about again next year. So around the same time before the annual report, you'll revisit it. Great. Awesome.
And I didn't list them here because I think they were listed in when you considered my mid-year review, but I keep an ongoing list of the webinars and workshops that I attend. If anybody ever wants to know.
Is the 5,000 for the executive coach for the 2 years, or is that 5,000 per year?
For 2 years.
Any other questions?
And number 5, I just had a thought. I know that you recently created a podcast with the GAI, where you participated in. Would you consider adding that to number 5 as a C? Because I consider that also your commitment to your own education, having those types of dialogues where you're not just listening to a podcast, you are helping shape and share the content.
Sure. That was a really fun freewheeling conversation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that an ongoing one?
No, that was
No.
Oh, okay.
But
I'm a
if you've done it once,
Great idea.
Yeah.
do it once, do it again.
You know, there's Minnesota Now on NPR, and now we have TCGIS now.
Next year's.
Next year. Yeah.
All right, no further discussion. All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your work on this. All right, anything else from the administrative liaison?
Just a couple quick things. We talked quite a bit about the Special Education Advisory Committee, so I'll give an update on that later down in the agenda. And then we also discussed the agenda for the upcoming retreat in April. We'll have a couple different blocks devoted to the building. One meeting with an architect, thinking about how we incorporate good design and especially energy and water efficiency in the design for the building, what could be looking ahead. And then a little bit more practical matters from the finance subcommittee that is looking at campus planning. And in the middle of that, we will have further discussion about strategic planning. So look for more of that in April. And I think the chair has promised us food as part of this as well. So really look forward to that part.
Still working on a venue.
Director Alcative, because Director Linnell mentioned special education, I realized that I failed to include in my staffing something I think you all already know, but we are hiring or have made an offer to a dean of special education who has not yet been released from his district, but we will be welcoming him in the fall. So that's still in the works, but technically done. So I should have put that on there.
It's great that I'm still interested.
Yeah, and he did actually join us for an admin retreat too.
Oh, good.
He's great. And we're just really crossing our fingers that that doesn't fall through for any reason. He's fantastic. I think he'll be really good for our school.
Nice. Great. That's it. Thank you, Director Linnell. Laura.
Yeah,
Liaison update.
parent liaison. Yeah, on March 21st was a parent council meeting that I joined. I encourage people to apply for board election, or look at the nominations. Then there was Director Kristen was there and gave a report. I would like to add that she announced, first it was the first day of optional mask wearing. So there was a lot of talk about that and people seemed to be happy, and it was a little bit discussed how teachers approach that and how students reacting. So, but altogether positive feedback. And yeah, then she, Director Kristen talked about the upcoming upcoming event, the exhibition in the fall. I would like to point out that she really made a point how teachers are got resources to deal with student questions, especially in the lower grades.
It will have.
Yeah, yeah, but the plan, how that is all laid out. So, and parents appreciated that, I think. Yeah, and then there was a presentation from Diana Irvin about positive behavioral intervention and support, the PBIS, yeah, PBIS program. And parents are very excited to see that. Also that they didn't seem to know how much it is data-based, and that was seemed to be interesting to parents. And there was a response of how delightful it is to see this presentation. So in all, a really meeting. At least this is a public part. The parents also have a closed session part, which I'm not part of.
Thank you for the update. Thanks for attending the meetings. Any questions for Director Linnell? All right, that brings us to our recess. A little ahead of schedule.
Before the recess, can I add something? Because it just is related to her. I'm so sorry. I had such a long report. I forgot this. I just wanted to mention two things about the transfer of memory exhibit that are in the loan brief, but I didn't include here. And that is that after our discussion at committee of the whole, we have decided to add a second public showing of that for the neighborhood. So that'll be on Sunday, May 1st from 4 to 6 in the afternoon. No way to tell. The other one will be open to the public too. For example, we hope that community members here will maybe bring family and friends to the event on the 27th, and that will actually be the nicer event, if you will, because we'll have speakers there. But we do want the space to be open for anyone else who wants to see it. So that'll be Sunday, May 1st. We didn't want to do it on a Saturday to honor Shabbat. Sunday, May 8th is Mother's Day. So that kind of didn't leave us with a lot of options. So we'll do it on Sunday, May 8th from 4 to 6. And then also on Thursday, May 5th, sorry. Yeah, May 1st. And then on Thursday, May 5th, we have a representative from the Jewish Community Relations Council who be coming and doing a really lovely presentation for our community on Judaism 101 or Jewish Life 101, bringing some beautiful cultural artifacts and talking about that just as part of that. That's also World Religions Month, and we'll have a lovely display in the library for world religions. And so that's all part of it.
How are you going to let the community know or invite the community? How are you?
The Bugle, and then I'll reach out to Amy Brenwan as well.
D10 maybe?
That's what I meant, yeah.
Oh.
She's the president of D10, Amy Brenwan.
No, she's
No,
the,
she's the
she's the city council
city
member.
council.
I'll send you,
I knew that.
Shevik's email address. They have their Friday weekly email that comes out. And so I'm sure he'd be happy to put it in there
Okay.
for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, great.
Nice. Oh, thank you.
No more interruptions.
That's great. All right, I'll call recess and we'll reconvene at 8:30.
Like, this is-
8:31.
Well,
Got a bonus for that.
but you came up to search.
Thank you.
I went through the. here's the-
Colleagues,
each
we'll
time.
come back to order. The next item on the agenda is the Governance and Leadership Development Committee. I will give the floor to Director Alpers.
Thank you. Biggest thing coming out of governance, which we talked about at committee of the whole this month, was the nomination committee updates. In addition to, of course, the policies, but looking for those nominations that are due on April 11th. I've only received officially one, so those of you in the room helping me in this endeavor, spring break is gonna hopefully my email will still be accruing
When is the deadline?
things. The deadline is April 11th, which is the Monday when we come back from
So
spring break.
you will get them all on April the 10th.
Yes. But as a general call out for those in the room that have been helping me, but also to the general public, I put it in the the run brief this week. So that is happening. If we need to, I've debated extending the deadline to the 15th, which would be that Friday after we return, so that we can maybe adjust back to spring break a little bit better. I've just been going by the template that has kind of always been used. So that was kind of the maybe error in that.
I have a commitment, firm commitment from one other parent. And today I have a Zoom meeting with another parent who's interested. And that seems promising. She's gonna check with the family and sure everyone's on board. So
I'll talk to somebody too.
Good.
The first commitment was charming.
Yes, that is good to hear. Other than that, that's been the sole focus, of course, in the spring months of governance besides policy. Tonight, there are 3 policies that are up for approval. The first one is 206, which is being renamed or slightly less named, public participation in school board meetings. The second is the policy 807, health and safety, which has been updated in name as well. And 709, which is the transportation policy. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve them so we can discuss them. So,
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve policy 206, 709, and 807 by Director Alders, seconded by Director Hyde. Discussion on the policies.
The biggest thing about 206, it was, so at the top, it used to say public participation in school board meetings / complaints about persons at school board meetings and data privacy considerations. A mouthful. So instead of having that all in the title to kind of bring it down, it's in section 1, letter C, that it kind of mirrors what we would say at a school board meeting about individuals talking to those who might be a part of those issues or complaints that are being addressed to the board, and the consideration of data privacy within that, and that they've talked to that person beforehand. Other than that, there's not much to be changed in 206.
With the transportation policy, did the Director of Operations review it?
Yes, and
Sorry, I'll change it.
so with that one in the transportation, the word safety was added, but practices as well. And there were a few things Xed out about safety training and things of that nature that seemed more procedural. then there were some just slight wording changes in that one as well. And also talking a little bit more about the procedure. Well, so for example, in section 6, letter E, it originally said the bus will wait only 1 to 2 minutes past its scheduled stop time before continuing on its route, which felt very constricting and specific, and so made it a little bit more broad to say the bus will strive to stay on its time schedule. So allowing for Minnesota weather,
So aspirational.
but also acknowledging that 1 to 2 minutes is quite strict and unnecessary inside of a policy. So. And then lastly is 807, and I might hand that over to you, Jeff, I know, because you worked very hard on that one.
Yeah, it's mainly some nomenclature changes throughout the policy because we were looking at it. It referenced a health and safety policy. We thought there was confusion possibly with the wellness policy that we have. What it really is an occupational safety policy. And so we wanted to make it clear that we are talking about the safety of people that live or otherwise are in the building, students, and the measures that are taken to through a committee led by Andy or facilities manager to make sure that we are covering all Minnesota law related to workplace safety. So changing it from health and safety, which could be construed as wellness, to changing it to a safe workplace policy and lining that language up, and also taking out a few things that don't really apply to us, things like forklift safety. I don't think we need that. I don't think we have forklift. Adding a couple of other things that we may want to consider adding. For example, there is a railroad track a block away from here. We may want to think about if God forbid, a train derails, do we have a safety policy in place for that? I don't think we do. But having this policy leading the charge on what procedures we do actually need in place, I don't think we've had for the last few years in accounting of what types of workplace safety policies we do have and where we have gaps. So this policy has been rewritten to put some focus on that. What do we need? What do we not need? And aligning procedures from there.
Is this policy, the workplace policy, kind of still in process? Is this the first reading? Because I'm looking at like the part 2, section A, right at the beginning. We've crossed out the first part of the sentence, so the revision would literally start. That includes plans and procedures to protect employees. Like what does? It's kind of missing some grammar.
I think there's some comments on the side where the language hasn't been moved from the comment into the draft.
That could be. All right.
And that is in part of the way that the policies are shared in, I think, the way that they were edited to, just because this policy was so heavily edited that deleting or doing certain things, they didn't necessarily want to make sure, they want to make sure that they had the original policy kind of still stamped in there as they fix it.
So that's good answers.
It'll be definitely worked before
Polished
it's
up.
put on line. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
So, for example, is forklift safety
Yes.
excluded? Is it still shown?
It's got its form.
Where's that?
Is there a way going forward we can show all that?
Yes, there is a way to make sure that that's done. It's, you can't use comments or like suggestions of changing things versus actually striking it with, yes, so that has happened in previous months as well, so there is a way to do
It's not linked.
that and make sure that continues. It was just a specific policy that seemed to be heavy, as you can see by all of the suggestions. Yeah.
I don't know. I found the link here. And Emily, I just want to clarify. I just found the link to the live copy with the comments, and now that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was just looking at the packet.
Yeah, and the packet one doesn't reflect it because it's a copy. So
It's copied. Makes sense. Got it. Oh, yeah, this looks a lot better now. Comments galore.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor of approving these three policies, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. As always.
Winding down.
Next on the agenda, Finance and Facilities Committee. Dr. Hyde, I was hoping you could give an update on the campus planning subcommittee.
I will sure start, but I'm hoping / wondering if Kirsten will want to kind of jump in. I'll start with financials and supplemental report. We didn't have a meeting this month, so nothing really to report on there. But looking at the financials, everything seems to be in order, nothing outstanding that needs to be discussed right now, but you know, the summary is always in the report, and those amazing infographics are there again. So I encourage everybody to look at them. And we'll do a full review at our April meeting of February and March then. The one thing to report on is we had our first campus planning subcommittee meeting, which went very, very well. Administration has kind of stepped up and is going to chair the subcommittee more or less. And we're all, I think, really excited for that. I think that's, there's a general consensus that that's where it belongs. And you guys are a lot closer to it. You people are a lot closer to the needs and everything. So I think that's great. I don't know when our next meeting is going to be.
April 12th.
April 12th, is it now? Okay. And then we also still have a facilities meeting attached to the next finance meeting. So maybe we can keep that for the Tuesday time too. And if you have anything to add, feel free.
Just that at our next, at the April 12th meeting, it will be a campus tour for the campus planning committee, which seemed really important. We were kind of talking, you know, in the ether about some of the things that needed to happen in the school. And so we have a couple architects on the committee who haven't seen the space in a really long time. And so we'll take the opportunity to spend most of the meeting just walking through the space, and hopefully that'll be a good foundation for our discussions moving forward. And we talked some pretty concrete numbers too about funds that we already know we have available. Andy has worked for some time to create an ongoing list of what things would cost and when things need to be repaired and fixed, and those numbers are likely to change because some of the estimates were from a long time ago, but we are able to be specific in some ways and have to dream big in other ways. So it's a great group of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Any questions?
Thank you, Director Hyde. Diversity and Belonging Committee. Directors Ava Farley, what do you say?
Yeah, so we met on March 15 and first had some discussion around what is going on. We had updates from the staff working group, which is still working on resources for staff. We had a discussion or they had a discussion on Black History Month resources and how they can support the school in working on the curriculum. We read through the notes by the Land Acknowledgement Working Group and spoke briefly about it. We also heard updates from the affinity groups. Lots of events are happening. The BIPOC Family Affinity Group just had an event last Thursday. There are other affinity groups, the Modern Families Affinity Group and the LGBT+ Affinity Group that are also having events and meeting. There's the GSA for students that is working on art projects. I visited them last week, checked in with them, and they will share photos with us next time we meet in May. We had discussions around an article that was published in a journal that is also linked here in the agenda, and a public radio show that was discussed then at the Committee of the Whole as well on March 22nd. We briefly spoke about the Come Teach in Minnesota program that was earlier introduced by Dr. Christensen. And then at the end of the meeting, we looked at the milestones for this year and saw that we are currently working on many of those milestones, or some of them have been completed and accomplished already. One of the milestones that has not been worked on yet is planning 3 events for the TCGIS community to gather, discuss, learn, and celebrate the diversity in our school, the Twin Cities, and international communities. And we decided that there would be a special meeting on April 12th at 7 o'clock at night to this time to plan one event for the school year, now that COVID guidelines are not as strict anymore. Yeah, so an email was sent out, and yeah, as we heard from Dr. Christensen, we have another event also planned for the community.
Arguably 3, right? Because we have the it would be 4 now, this one, right? Because we have the Judaism 101 thing, we have the open exhibit, and then we have the evening event. Those are all connected to the same thing, so can't have too many. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for that. Any questions for Director Roseman? Mission and School Culture Committee. Director Leno.
Yes, I'm going to talk about the Special Education Advisory Committee. Not new, we've had Special Education Advisory Committee, but the request came to Mission and School Culture to have it live as a subcommittee under Mission and School Culture, kind of in the same vein that the Curriculum Advisory Committee does. And there's the main reason for that is, like the Curriculum Advisory Committee, this is mandated by the state. We are required to have this committee, and we want to provide some more structure and some more formality to it, and to provide a link from the committee to Mission and School Culture to the board, but then also to other committees where it's going to be relevant. For example, because we advise the SEAC advises on special education policy, how does that connection get made to governance committee? How does it get made to diversity and belonging? So it's Mission and School Culture will be the hub. SEAC will then connect to other committees, and also gives Mandy Kasowitz, our director, a better line of sight to the board and the board to her through this committee. So we're really excited about that. I'll walk, I won't read the whole 4-page charter to you, but I wanted to pull out some highlights to make sure that everybody understands the structure and what you can expect going forward from this committee. So you see that we have tri-chairs. Very deliberately, we have a board member, a SPED parent, and then special education administration. So right now that is Director Kasowitz, who's on spring break this week, I might add, which is why I'm speaking in her stead. By statute, it has to be a certain percentage of special education parents. I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, but I think it's 50%. In curricular advisory, it's 65. So we will make sure that we have the right balance between staff and parents to make that work. And the committee is going to meet on opposite months for Mission and School Culture. So we meet in April for Mission and School Culture. So the next SEAC meeting will be in May. Objectives, providing that place where policy can be discussed. How is policy serving us at TCGIS? What is not clear, especially to SPED families? Where are there potential gaps? Where should discussion be had? This will be the place that happens. It also provides that increased communication between SPED families and the SPED administration, but also between the board and SPED administration. So we will have better, richer conversations about special education as board members, which I think is very important. And they are also under this committee, we're still trying to figure out the exact structure for this because this is an advisory committee. It's not an affinity group, but we want to provide a better connection between families and the communities, especially welcoming in new families that don't know a lot about special education until you find out that your kid needs it. How do you make that less scary? How do the families that are experienced help onboard the families that are learning that their child needs these services? And how can they serve as a support group for one another? We're trying to figure out exactly what that looks like, but we know that over the summer, there will be an opportunity for this committee to plan some of those activities for fall, right away at the beginning of the school year, but then also kind of midway through fall as more families are being identified and learning that they need to learn about SPED very quickly. What's in scope, this is an advisory committee. What's out of scope, this is not an oversight committee. So we want to make that very clear. Special Education Administration is a partner and a chair of this committee for that exact reason, because it's an advisory committee. We are not critiquing or overseeing the SPED department. That is not the role of this committee. And then the top priorities, we already talked about this: communication, family outreach, and thinking about what policies need to be in place, what policies need to be revised, and looking at knowing that governance has a very robust schedule for how they review particular policies, making sure that SEAC understands your calendar in governance, what's going to be reviewed, and then also working with you. We know that there are some policies that maybe need to be created. So how does that get folded into the governance agenda going into the next school year? Any questions? And one of the big unknowns, I would say right now, going back to what Dr. Christensen said earlier, is that SPED dean coming in for the next school year. So how do we work with Mandy being the director of special education and then adding into the fold the dean of special education? What does that total SPED administration at TCGIS look like? And then who takes the lead for particular activities and takes that tri-chair role for administration? So some pieces to work out, but I think Mandy did a great job putting this charter together really quickly. She taking all of her knowledge and educating the rest of us very, very quickly about what's needed for this charter. So I really appreciate it. I wish she could be here tonight. She'd do a much better job of presenting all of this just based on her leadership at the School of Special Education.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll make a motion to approve the charter for the SEAC committee as shown in the board packet, and to move SEAC into a subcommittee under mission and school culture.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. There was some discussion about creating an affinity group for families with divergent kids. Could you elaborate on that? Because I think in the past, this group kind of served that function, but now the scope is changing a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I said that SEAC has been around for a while, it mainly functioned more as a affinity group with looser ties to SPED administration. It was more parent focused and parent connection focused. This, giving it more advisory committee and policy structure, is going to change the way it operates. But as we were discussing the charter, we know that that community and family connection element is still greatly desired. Knowing that we can't lose sight of the need to fulfill the state statute with respect to policy and advisory, we are planning to have an affinity group. Don't know exactly who's going to lead that though, because we don't want the same people chairing this committee to lose sight of their job in this committee while also chairing an affinity group. So it's almost going to be a spinoff, may have to partner with another group like Parent Council or the PTO to make that parent connection function more robust, allowing the advisory committee to continue to focus mainly on its policy functions. So it'll be still there. We just don't know exactly how it's going to come to life. There's also questions about the capacity of staff to participate in something like that. We don't, knowing that special education staff already has a great amount of things to do, who's going to take ownership and leadership of that part of it? And leading that, it's probably going to be a parent function, which is probably a question for the next school year.
Yeah, I wanted to point it out for diversity and belonging committee. And keep in mind that since the affinity groups are a subcommittee of that. All right, all those in favor of approving the SEAC charter and moving SEAC under mission school culture as a subcommittee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Right, Director Island, Communication and Outreach Committee.
Yeah, the big thing here, last at our committee of the whole meeting, you saw the rebranding presentation. So that group, they are giving that presentation to parents and staff, and then probably somehow students, I think, as well, and gathering that feedback. And then in, I suppose, yes, in late April, then, or at our next meeting in April, I'll have to talk exactly and find out when the communications committee can synthesize all the feedback from those stakeholder groups and make a recommendation as to which rebranding concept would be the strongest for the school to adopt. And then we will bring that, I will bring that forward to the board for consideration, recommending one of the three. So I don't have a big update there, everything you saw last week. And then two things that have been on my mind is I'm going to talk with Katerina. I think I have a meeting with Katerina after spring break to talk about doing some advertising for the higher grades, focusing on Minneapolis. Because there's been a lot of disruption in Minneapolis public schools lately. So some families may want to come over here. And then also, I should talk with Dr. Christensen about whether or not there needs to be some sort of press release or some sort of document we can refer to for the
Transport memory.
Yes, thank you. I think there's already been a lot of things written up, in the Elton brief, in the written brief, and then also at the JRCCA, they have, whole web pages about it. So I think just so we can have like a larger document, so when somebody says, I want to know more, and especially if we're going to talk to D10 and things like that. So
I can do that.
yeah, it seems like
Yeah,
let's write something once and break it up depending on where it's going to go.
the JCRC owns the exhibit, if you will, so they have a dedicated page to it and have for a decade.
Okay.
But there's no mention of our connection to it and where it's showing. And so we can put that on our webpage. I'd love to do that. And then I can certainly get a sort of at a glance with all the details
Yeah.
on it.
So that's what's going on. Yes, Diane.
I'm glad that you're going to meet with Katerina to talk about focusing on Minneapolis, to your point about the disruption that's been happening there.
Yep.
Make sure, I'd like to be able to weave in somehow to, if we did get parents interested from Minneapolis, to let them know about the high school option that exists at St. Louis Park, as like a bonus somehow. So like, if they're like, okay, and then what? My kid goes back to a Minneapolis school for high school. There's no German there because there isn't any German in Minneapolis high schools. But there's a pretty robust group of TCGIS grads at St. Louis Park. So that's something to mention, that when we do that outreach.
Yeah, well,
So there's like a pathway is what I meant.
yeah. We'll keep that in mind.
I think it's great to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting because, when we saw the enrollment numbers, there's some room, but not a whole lot. So it's kind of like, can we find like 6 families,
In these grades.
in these specific grades who are willing to
Yeah.
bring your elementary school or middle school child over?
And that might be a thing too. It's like, yeah, I've always wanted to have my kid go to an immersion school, blah, blah, blah. And now let's say you come in 6th grade or something, and your kid really loves it. And then they're going to go back to high school. And it's
Sure.
like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all very valid. I think a lot of that is probably covered once either it's going to should be covered when they're talking with administration about the potential enrolling, or in the middle school meetings. I mean, I guess, when we're advertising, like we're putting like a thing like this big in like on a web page or a newspaper. And so, mentioning that there's a partnership with St. Louis Park or St. Paul Central is a little out of scope. Like the first thing is get them onto our webpage and get them talking to us here.
So maybe it's something that we put on our website here. Like once you get their interest and once they come here, and it's like, that they know that there's like a forward path.
Yep.
Talk about it in tours.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Any other questions?
I'll just point out that Minneapolis Public Schools, kids can continue their Spanish if they start here. So, for example, my son is continuing Spanish.
And there
at-
might be other
at a
schools
Central
too
School.
who have German programs like Woodbury or.
But not if you're targeting Minneapolis, they're not gonna. But yeah, I think that's I talked to Elizabeth about this, just as a quick aside, about we all are wearing our global German hats. We want to be able to promote German no matter where, so just because it's been so decimated in high schools in Minnesota in particular, that's just not taught anywhere anymore. So wherever we can really promote and support programs like Central, St. Louis Park, Woodbury, Spring Lake Park. So there's just a few schools that do teach it. I think it's a great thing to do so that no matter where you might live, if your child comes here, to try to hook you up with some pathway that might work for your family, depending on wherever.
I'm nearly certain that German is also still taught at Two Rivers High School.
Where's that?
North Dakota.
Great River?
No,
Two Rivers.
Two River. Oh, it's Wayne.
It used to be called something else. Sibley. The reason I mention that is because they also have a teacher training program there, and I've already been in communication with the principal there, whom I know through the.
Where's
the
the
principals
St. Paul School? Is this a St. Paul school?
I'm pretty sure it's the St. Paul School. Right? Anyway, I can look it up, but he has suggested that I visit there to talk to their students who are learning German and in the teacher training program. That's a high school, so they couldn't come teach here after, but just to let them know that there's a place.
Noda Heights.
Oh, okay.
That they could compete. So I think there might, you're right, German is aussterben, right? It's dying out in high schools, but.
Well, and then the caveat there is it's not just German. It's like for our kids, it really has to be a really strong German teacher. And, not all German high school teachers are of the same caliber like we have at Central or like St. Louis Park. There's a handful. But yeah, I didn't know that about Mendota Heights.
Pretty sure.
All right. Just one question for you, Director Owen. I think you mentioned there's in the Bugle, there's a roundup section for.
Yes, there's a roundup section. The next roundup deadline is next, I think Thursday, and it will be published in May. So.
Topics that you're submitting for that?
I don't right now. So if anyone has a topic they want published in the Bugle in May.
How long is it? Yes, we need to talk about our calendar.
What was that?
Our calendar.
I think I submitted that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think they may have axed it, last one. Last time I submitted a good couple of paragraphs and they like shrunk it down.
How
So
often does the bugle come out?
once a month.
So we've already missed it for April.
Yeah.
So I guess I won't be advertising the transfer of memory there.
Well, you might be able to get on their website. So. Yeah. Good.
Final item on the agenda is committee of the whole. And we have a couple of items to approve. So first is our board self-evaluation. I just want to thank all of you for filling out the evaluation. I know normally we've done it at the end of the school year, but going through the contract renewal process, I was reminded that we should do it in March according to our contract. They would like to see the self-evaluation in March, so I'll send that to them tonight after we approve it. And actually, it turns out to be good timing because I think it's good to kind of reflect on where we are when we still have a few months left in the school year to make some adjustments if we need to. And also with our upcoming elections and as we're trying to identify candidates to fill in certain roles. This is really helpful because as part of the evaluation, I asked everybody if they're interested in chair position, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and what committees would you like to chair next year, and then even reflecting on future years so that we can have a succession plan in place. That's something that we can improve on, I think, to be more thoughtful about preparing our officers to take these roles and preparing our committee chairs. So yeah, this is all in the packet for everyone to review. But I'll just mention that we have robust accomplishments in all 4 focus areas of our strategic plan. So thank you all for your work this year in supporting our goals. You can see everything that was listed. I just copied and pasted it. Also some opportunities under school culture and engagement. We just want to have more of a focus on the diversity aspect as we're reviewing our governance policies. So that was something I carried over from last year's self-evaluation. Innovative teaching and learning, another strong list. Diversity and belonging. Still some opportunities, but we've been discussing some of those tonight. So financial sustainability. And here I also just want to formally thank you all for contributing to the board match this year. 3rd year in a row that everyone contributed, and we had over $10,000 and $10,390 that the board contributed as a board match. So thank you for doing that and for helping inspire our community to give towards our annual fund. And we had a 2nd year with COVID-19 goal of getting through the school year safely. So we're in a good spot there. And then as fiduciaries of the school and as a nonprofit organization in Minnesota statute, we have 3 fiduciary duties: the duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience. So we did great in the first 2, duty of care. A lot of strengths listed here. Nothing fell. So this is a score of 1 to 5. Said opportunities as scores of less than 3.9. Strengths were 4.8 to 5. So no opportunities there. Same for duty of loyalty. Duty of obedience, we have some opportunities to become more familiar with some laws. Minnesota employment law, public school food law, Pupil Fair Dismissal Act, IRS rules. everything that's super exciting. So I think that can just be an individual action item to personally try to review that. And become familiar. I don't think we need to spend time going over that, but please take a look at that. Then some good reflections on how to develop as a board. And then I wanted to focus on the officer succession planning. So I want to thank Emily Albers for voicing her interest in being vice chair. She also was interested in secretary. I'm interested in being chair again next year. I spoke with Megan Dayton about the possibility of being secretary, and so I asked about vice chair. The secretary is still a question. I think vice chair is out.
Totally out.
Yeah. And Richard Hyde, thank you for being interested in remaining our treasurer next year. That's wonderful.
If I get reelected.
If you get reelected, not sure what happens. I'll wear your buttons.
Your buttons? Come on,
I'll make them if you'll wear
You should
them.
have buttons.
Campaign material.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I'll
wanted
get
that.
some credit.
So this is proposed officers, and what I like about this, I think it's great to have a teacher in the officer position as we meet as an executive committee. I think it's nice to have a teacher perspective at that level. So other thing I like about this is we're not asking brand new board members to step into officer roles right away. Which is just a lot to ask for someone that's coming on, and there's so much to learn. So, and then the conversations I've had with potential applicants, they appreciate the time, like a slower onboarding timeframe to get their feet wet and figure out where they can contribute. And so then succession planning, I think it would make sense if our vice chair from 1 year became the chair in the next year. So potentially Emily could be chair in 23, 24. We need a new vice chair at that point. Because I think it'd be great if I could step down and let someone else take the leadership of the board at that point.
Speaking of, how come you're listed as secretary in 23, 24? Won't you still be president in that year?
Well, so that's what I'm saying, is I could step down from chair that year and be secretary and let someone else be chair. And overlapping 1 year, I could be there to support the new chair. And that's following a model Kelly Loudon started actually. She was chair for several years, and then she asked Sam Walling to be chair, and she was secretary. So it worked out pretty well to do that. This is all tentative. And of course, it all has to be voted on by the board and approved. So, but at that point, we could have maybe one of the new board members that joined this year be vice chair. And for next year, we're looking at an opening for mission and school culture chair and the fundraising chair. We have Director Eberhard, who would like to chair the diversity and belonging. It's solo. I don't know if you guys have talked about that.
We haven't.
So I'll let you guys talk about that.
Talk amongst yourselves.
It's possible we could have one of the new members be co-chair.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, okay. I know you can do it. And, Kevin Eberhard has expressed interest in chairing mission and school culture in the future. If that transition happened, then perhaps I could chair diversity and belonging. You know, this is all future, so. And then ultimately, I think we should plan to transition back to a 9-member board when the opportunity presents itself. Just recognizing that the board's role as an oversight and governance group can be reduced with the strong administrative team that we see in place. There's less that the board needs to do. It makes sense. And plus it makes it easier to keep 9 members on board than 11, you know, recruiting people. So I looked at when everyone's rolling off and whatnot, and I think it's possible we could do that in the spring of 2024. So not next year, but after. Just with like, because we have to maintain that six parent members. So stay tuned for that. And that's not set in stone, but if we determine we should stick with 11, then we can do that as well. So, any thoughts on all of this?
Thanks for doing all that. Overthinking.
But minor thought to potentially consider for 23-24, maybe Julie Alcatude as vice chair, and I would consider continuing as secretary. Maybe, just maybe.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about?
Well, that could work if you're going to be chair for a while. I'm just thinking we want to train a vice chair into the chair role.
That's a lot to ask out of somebody that's brand new, though, coming onto the board. I think.
Depending on what experience they've had.
Yeah,
and we
that's
don't
true.
know.
Could be one from this year.
Not yet.
Yeah. This could work too. I'll pick either one.
Do you want to talk any like these kind of things through now, or should we do that at a future time?
Yeah, if you want to.
I'd be interested in working closer with you in governance if you think you need a little bit of help while you take on more stuff with the vice chair or something like that, if that were to happen.
Yeah.
Governance is huge.
Yeah. No.
You want to chair governance?
No, or I was thinking more like co-chair it for this year and then maybe chair it the year after or something.
Okay. Awesome.
Governance is big and unpredictably so, right? So sometimes there are huge waves of stuff that have to be considered, and other times there's not so much on.
And it's structured in a way, or at least I've structured it in a way so that it fits within the school year. So actually this month was the last time that we will have a first reading for the 2021-22 school year, because our kind of school year wraps up, our board year wraps up in June. It's nice to have that clean break, and then I start the year 3 policies in August when we reconvene. So to have all of that somewhat shaped to fit continues to adjust, especially as we add new policies and retire old ones. Keep the years kind of level as far as the 3-year rotations are.
They put a nice structure together.
Yeah. All right. I'll make a motion to approve the board self-evaluation for spring 2022 to submit to our authorizer tonight. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Bateman. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And then I also wanted to present the potential board retreat agenda. And we discussed this, Lisa mentioned this already, Director Bonnell, that we discussed this at administrative liaison. Okay. Just share my screen again. So I did learn tonight that Director Pitsenga has a conflict on April 23rd with his GACC board retreat. It's a good day for retreats.
potential.
So we could consider rescheduling. If anyone else has conflicts. But this is the tentative agenda. I did promise Aki streusel and coffee. So I talked with Tim Ian, who is a parent at the school here. He has a 7th grader and a graduate. He's an architectural engineer of his own practice, and he's a certified passive house designer and consultant. So he's from Germany and brought that passive house technology over to the United States. Full disclosure, he was the architect for our house because we wanted to build a really energy efficient home. I've asked him to come and present, not that we would embark on, anyway, I just want him to come and present to like get the board thinking really big picture, because he's a visionary, really big picture, long-term thinking of what we would need to do to have, to reach carbon neutrality, for example, which is a goal that many corporations are setting out in the future. And that's a goal that we haven't discussed as a school. And I think it aligns well with our German background, our mission to evaluate how we could possibly become carbon neutral. I think it ties in well with the zero waste policy that we passed last year. And Tim actually sent a note to Director Linnell when the zero waste policy came out saying, hey, this is awesome, but how about we also consider not wasting energy, which is basically the whole premise of passive house is you retain energy. People always jump to solar panels, for example, as the energy efficient thing to do. But for him, that's the last thing you do. First, you just retain the energy you have, and then you minimize how much energy you need. And then once you've done all those things, then it's great if you can add solar panels and become carbon net zero. But basically, in my conversation, I talked with him for an hour yesterday. Our old school building is the focus of our subcommittee, right? That we would like AC and we would like new windows and all of this. And he's, evaluated things in the past for the school. So he's really familiar with this. And he reminded me there's zero insulation in that building, if you can believe it, in Minnesota. Zero insulation. And he mentioned that he recalled Excel Energy actually sent us a letter when we talked about adding AC. Excel Energy said you can't add AC unless you have insulation because you're going to draw too much energy from our power grid. You're going to crash our system. I was like, well, that's interesting information to have because right now we're talking about adding AC and doing windows, but just having built a house with him, I understand that it's a whole system that has to work together. And if we could add insulation, which would entail adding to the outside of the building insulation and then redoing it. And I know it sounds like craziness, but in the long term, things pay for themselves because then you're not heating and cooling and sending it out a really leaky window and everything. So I just thought our board as visionaries could learn kind of from him and then take that into consideration because I think the board should be responsible for drafting the charter for our subcommittee on campus planning. Like we have this great group of volunteers, including 2 other architects. What does the board actually want them to do? Do we want to guide them down a path of in 20 years we want to be carbon neutral? Do we want to guide them down a different path? So I was hoping that that could kind of spark that kind of conversation at our retreat.
I'm not a science teacher, but I was raised by one, and there's a lot of potential, I think, for getting our kids on board to be part of a school that is, I can even imagine them being involved in projects or research about, efficiency in the school before and after those projects and seeing things go in. I mean, I don't know exactly what it would look like, but if there were ever a generation that cares about these things, it would be this one.
Yeah.
I work in the corporate responsibility part of Target, and part of my job is educating Target's leadership about things like net zero, circularity. And I will tell you, as leaders of the school, it's really imperative that we educate ourselves about sustainability options, being conversant with the language, the opportunities, the downsides. Corporations all over the country are having to get up to speed on this extremely quickly because the SEC is breathing down their necks, is saying, if you are setting sustainability goals, net zero goals ignorantly, you are misleading your shareholders. So corporate America pants are being scared off them, and they are having to learn very, very quickly. We are not a publicly traded company, but we are, as a publicly funded entity, it's incumbent upon us to become savvy about sustainability very quickly.
Yeah, sometimes you die for that. Anyway, and I also thought we could talk about the strategic plan because we heard Dr. Christensen saying there's some teaching goals that could be added to the milestones. And as a new executive director, I was hoping we could get her take on the whole plan. And is there anything in her 8 to 9 months that she's been here that could be tweaked or adjusted in our plan? So that's what I was thinking to do for the retreat.
In regards to our chat conversation about admin's participation in that.
Yeah, and so Dr. Christensen talked to admin about the agenda. So originally I was thinking this would just be the board. But
I actually didn't talk to them about the agenda. I just talked to them about the request for me to talk to them about, or talk to you all about the strategic plan.
So yeah, the admin team would like to be involved in the strategic plan discussion. But in fact, I think they should be there for the whole thing. Don't you think? At least the director of operations, I think, should hear, since she's co-chairing the Senate meeting. So, yeah, I'm fine with that one wants to come on Saturday with us. What do you think? I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Can I ask a question before you do?
Yeah.
Last time we had 2 books, I think, that we went through, and I hate to put more on people, but I really enjoyed that. It was like a team building. We learned more about each other, and I wonder if we could consider adding some sort of, I don't know, material to the agenda. I come without concrete suggestions, and I hate when people do that, so I'm sorry.
We need a theme.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Are you thinking of the book exchange we had at the beginning?
No, we read the
Structural.
Ibram Kendi book.
Yeah.
How to be anti-racist.
Yes.
And then there was another book that we read about our strengths finder.
Yep.
Something.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. I learned about other people and myself with the same sort of categories comparatively. So,
Yeah, that and the book exchange. We should put.
yeah.
Maybe we don't have time to read a book, but maybe what we should put on a calendar. Sorry to hijack your thing,
Please do.
but I love
I
it.
came without concrete suggestions. So it's very good.
Why don't we put the book exchange on it with also having a discussion on what book or 2 we should read for the fall retreat?
Okay.
Good idea. Says the person that won't be here.
Yeah, I'm gonna recommend away, man.
I have big ideas for you.
Big
all.
ideas for you guys.
Encyclopedia.
Wait, are you not, are you?
So do you want to do the strengths finder? I know Kirsten did strengths finder when she joined, but we haven't heard what your strengths are like officially.
That sounds like a presentation in itself.
Have our new board members done strength finder?
I don't think so.
No, okay. So it's a fun thing. You just figure there's a survey, there's a book, and you find out what your 5 strengths are, and it's fun.
It is fun.
I wish I learned about it earlier.
There's a bunch of those, like a personality assessment, even for professional environments. So maybe we could all do the same one, different same one. That didn't make any sense. A different one altogether again is what I meant to say.
We know it.
Yes. If it's like a team building TBD, I can throw some suggestions at you.
No, I love these ideas. I want it to be really fun, so. Do we want to work on the strategic plan, or do we want to table that? for another time?
So as you know, the suggestion from admin to be part of that conversation was that just, since the strategic plan was collaborative from the get-go, they felt like admin and the board should be in the room at the same time to discuss it. Nobody has April 23rd on their calendar. I'm not sure how it would go down to say the Saturday in 2 weeks or whatever, so if we tabled that till I'm not sure when, I don't know when would be a good time to get admin and the board together. Evenings are also not easy, so I'm not sure. I can propose it and let you know tomorrow. Okay, maybe, or after break, but that's really closing in on the retreat itself.
So would that mean that we don't do strategic plan?
Fill it in with something more fun, is what you're suggesting.
Not my words, but I will not.
I mean, so the strategic plan is in a really good spot, obviously. And my thought was just that you had suggested some small tweaks that Elizabeth had suggested. Just getting that.
I don't know how small they are. It was just, she identified a gap and we haven't had time to fill in the gap. Right, the gap being that there are no milestones related to teaching, only to learning. And we haven't had the capacity to fill those in. And that seems like those are things that our 3 deans can propose, but they would want to be there. I don't think they would want me just to present them and then not to be able to hear the discussion around them.
Would it be best to like bring it to committee of the whole in a month or 2
Yeah, maybe.
to give them time to,
Admin wants to put together the changes and then present it to us. Maybe that's more efficient use of time. I'll work on this. Are we okay drafting a charter of the campus planning subcommittee? I wonder if Ashley could come to the retreat. I have no idea. So this is a work in progress. I'll send an update. But thanks for your feedback. If you have books in mind, podcasts. Should you guys listen to the Nice White Parents podcast?
no, what is it?
Diversity Crew.
That sounds like an awful funny, but no, it's not funny, but it's such.
Yeah, I listened to it 2 years ago when it came out, and then it popped up again, and so I've been listening to it again. And just
The same, or
nice white
are there new episodes?
No, it's the same. But there's something new coming up. That's why it popped up.
Who does it?
But it's very interesting from the diversity.
Oh, it's serial production?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And maybe that we could discuss that.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion that we extend our meeting? We're running over time.
Yes.
We're so ahead of schedule too. What
How
happened?
about we just adjourn?
Yeah. Seconded.
Better idea.
Yeah.
Nice work. Meeting is adjourned.